Are you more or less confident in the Cowboys after the W?
Way more. And I think they should be. I think their fans should be. I think their players should be. That if they were to get around 3 of this matchup, they could win. Jalen doesn't play defense, and the Cowboys scored 40. The Cowboys, this to me was the best win, the signature win of Dak Prescott's career. Dak has had some great numbers, some great seasons, but he hasn't had a ton of amazing moments. Like when you think of prior to this, was it maybe the touchdown pass in overtime against your Patriots last year?
Nice
when he tweaked his calf actually on the play and had to miss some time because of that. That was a nice one. His one playoff victory, he was not great in that game. Mm-hmm. I thought his best game of his career actually is a loss, the playoff game against Green Bay, his rookie season.
Yep.
But there's another similarity there between yesterday's game and that rookie season. This is the best Cowboys team since that 2016 season. Dak's first year, Zeke's first year, when they were 13-3 and just got beat by a red-hot Aaron Rodgers in that playoff game. And that 3rd and 30, to me, was as good of a moment as this guy's ever had. And to start, they almost lost the Texans game because Dak tried to throw it away.
Yep.
They did lose the Jags game because Dak threw it away. To start this game by throwing a pick 6 to a D end and then rally, including the 3rd and 30 to a guy you just signed off the street in T.Y. Hilton, that's not only a great play, but a moment that can be galvanizing for the team. And so we know, Greg, that the defense can be excellent, even though it hasn't been recently. Mm-hmm. The offense just put 40 up on Philly. If you're the Cowboys, you've got to say, okay, we've got the only quarterback in the NFC playoff picture that's in the prime of his career and is supposed to be a Pro Bowl level player. We're healthier than these other teams. We have just shown that we can score 40 against the number 1 seed. Why can't this be the team that breaks the quarter-century drought and makes a conference championship game? So I believe way more in the Cowboys after yesterday's game, and I would have felt that way, to be honest, even if Philly had scored on the final drive and beat them 41-40. Because putting 40 up on this Eagles team means something, and they did it.
So I'm not as excited as you are about being more encouraged about the Cowboys, but I am. I'm more impressed with the Cowboys, even with the way they won against a Jalen Hurts list Eagles team.
Yeah.
And the reason why is this. You said it. For me, that defense can improve. But to see that offense take a step in scoring points and putting up yards and Dak overcoming a potential dagger early in that game, that was huge. Because what we've seen over the course of their season has been the defense winning games for them. Well, the defense is – let's go down it. Defense. In the last 3 games, this is why it was more impressive for me. Yeah. Because in the last 3 games, the defense has given up 424 yards a game. That's 31st in the league.
Yep.
293 of those are passing yards, which we look at their secondary and we're like, man, you got Trayvon Diggs, you got all these guys, they're going to get interceptions, they're going to do all this stuff. They haven't been able to do those things. Last in sacks.
Yeah, that's what.
With that front 4, Micah Parsons leading the way and others, last in sacks in the last 3 games. This is the team that is predicated on getting to the quarterback, which then protects your secondary. And then, but what makes this team resilient and what makes me confident about this team, you just heard all of those statistics, but then they're third. When it comes to takeaways, they're still top.
Yeah.
Like, they're still leading the league in takeaways.
Yep.
They're getting 3 takeaways versus the 2 that they were getting all season long.
Don't you think that's a little bit of fool's gold? A team that lives off of takeaways.
I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's fool's gold. Because they've been leading the league in takeaways. Mm-hmm. They've been very good up front. They've been getting sacks. They've been getting pressures on the quarterback. That's what I believe is fool's gold. They're going to start back getting to the quarterback. Okay. They're not going to go 3 games and not have any sacks to show for. That's just not who they are. And offensively, if you can then put up points, which in the last 3 games offensively, they've improved. Yeah. 5th in yards per game, 2nd in points per game. Like, that's a vast improvement for the Dallas Cowboys, so they have a lot to do.
Well, I'll show you the sacks numbers that Josh drew up the sacks number. The problem is they were first in sacks. And so they were first, and then all of a sudden they've only got 1. And that was against the Texans. That was against the Prince who was promised, who cooked them. And then yesterday against Gardner. So for me, I felt, Nick, that we always looked into the crystal ball of the future, and we said, all right, we know what's going to doom the Cowboys. It's going to be a Dak getting careless with the ball. It's going to be a Mike McCarthy clock management issue.
And McCarthy at the end of the game yesterday wasn't great.
But now I think it's going to be this defense can't get to the quarterback, and someone doesn't give up the ball. They just the running backs hold on to the ball. The quarterback doesn't throw it to the other team. And all of a sudden, like, we lost in this shootout.
Well, but the problem with that to me is the losing in a shootout is who's shooting against you. I mean, and this is why to me why this does circle back to Dak Prescott. Mm-hmm. Because go through the NFC potential playoff teams. Philly, Jalen, young, inexperienced, played 1 career playoff game. Minnesota, Kirk Cousins, not young, but only 1 playoff victory and not a guy that typically terrifies people. Brock Purdy, 7th round rookie, obviously no playoff experience. Brady, all the playoff experience in the world, but everyone thinks that team is terrible. And by the way, it's looked terrible, even if Brady still scares you.
Sure.
Daniel Jones never been to a playoff game. Taylor Heineke, 1 playoff game experience ever, or Carson Wentz, I suppose, who's just gotten hurt in all this playoff experience. Is Seattle, Geno, no playoff experience? Those are your potential playoff teams. I guess you can include Green Bay as a possible, but Green Bay and Dallas couldn't play each other until the conference championship game because they're both wild cards.
You're just going to overlook Detroit.
So, I'm sorry, you're right. I forgot about Detroit. My bad. Jared Goff does have some playoff experience, even though his most recent experience was not good, coming in for Walford, if you remember that, post-Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're the Cowboys, you're like, hey, who has a $40 million quarterback? Us. How old is he? 29, peak of his powers, prime. Whose team, while we see the Eagles just lost Lane Johnson, lost Avonte Maddox, which team is getting healthier? Us. Which team showed you for the first 2 months of the season we can be a top 3 defense, and is showing you for the last 6 weeks we can be a top 3 offense? Us. If we combine those things in the weaker NFC, now are they my pick? They're not my pick. But if they were to play in Philadelphia round 2, which it's if there aren't upsets in the bracket, that's what you would get. Don't you think Dallas goes in there and being like, okay, you beat us when Dak wasn't there, we beat you when Jalen wasn't there, but we showed you that we can hang 40 on you without playing a perfect game. Dak did get sacked 6 times. Dak did throw a pick 6. They still hung 40 on him. And Philly potentially rusty, dealing with these injuries. I'd be real nervous if I were the Eagles.
Real quick, Greg, on the pick 6. If the pick 6 comes late in the game, it's the story of the game. It came early in the game, so we're like, no big deal. It was early in the game. Are you worried about Dak throwing pick 6s?
Well, I've been worried about Dak. Sure. In any game, since he's come back from injury, when he throws 25-plus times, he's thrown an interception. That's been a problem. It's been problematic. Why is it problematic? Because you're putting a defense back on the field. We saw Micah Parsons at the end of that game. Literally,
timeout because he was tired.
Because he was winded. He's tired. Like, you put defenses that aren't getting pressure but doing everything that they possibly can to get after the quarterback, expending all that energy, you give them another series on top of that in the postseason, it's going to come back to bite you.
But
Dak has to be better.
The fact that he responded, though, with 14 straight completions is to me, because that was, I don't want to call that a fluky play, but it's not like he was thrown into coverage. It's Josh Sweat made an unbelievable play. But the fact that it didn't rattle Dak's confidence after how did the Jags game ended with a pick 6. This game basically started with a pick 6, and then he rallied. That, to me, is potentially a galvanizing moment for him.
Okay. Gardner, filling in for Jalen, had an up-and-down game, completed 26 passes, 24 to the Eagles, 2 to the Cowboys. 3 total touchdowns. Also gave the Cowboys a present by fumbling the ball. So the game was close, and Gardner did move the ball at times for both teams. Nick, does this help or hurt Jalen's MVP case? Quick note to the viewers. This is a Patrick Mahomes conversation. Go ahead.
Of course it is. Because the NFL MVP in 2022 is a Patrick Mahomes conversation. He's been the only constant. He started the year off with 5 touchdowns and a 140 passer rating. He's had one kind of bad game, and it was against the Broncos when they were up 27-0, and he got careless with the football and threw a hat trick of interceptions, all meaningless, by the way. He leads the league in touchdowns. He leads the league in yards. He leads the league in QBR, and he's second in passer rating. The guy who's ahead of him is Tua.
Is this really going to be a Patrick Mahomes conversation?
Well, he said it was going to be. He said it was going to be. Why would you do that?
Well,
I mean, he did it. You want me to talk about Gardner? No problem. Okay, here's the thing, Greg. Jalen Hurts is a good player, having a great year with the perfect supporting cast. And we saw that yesterday when Gardner Minshew, as a backup quarterback, came in and moved the team about as well as Jalen does. Now, Jalen's been exceptional about not turning the ball over.
And that's what cost them the game.
And Gardner turned the ball over. But if you watched that game and said, well, clearly Jalen is the key to that offense, no, you didn't. You watched it and you're like, Gardner Minshew moved the ball. And by the way, I know he had 3 turnovers. The second pick was a great play by the Cowboys defender. And the fumble, I don't know if that's more on Gardner or the running back. That's bad luck. That wasn't like a strip sack thing. To me, that was the Eagles scoring 27 offensive points, take out the pick 6, and moving the ball the way they did. And Gardner not getting sacked and the offensive line holding up, to me, was evidence that the Eagles have not had the league MVP this year.
This did not hurt Jalen Hurts' MVP chances. The only thing that can hurt Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts not being available now and not playing. That is it. Gardner Minshew, he played well. Congratulations. You played well. It did not come out into a win, but this is Jalen Hurts' team. And it's not just about the stats that he's putting up. It's not just about the numbers. Everything about who Jalen Hurts is, they have bought into. In the huddle, how you lead, how you command, how you stay poised, how you respond, how you show resilience. It is his leadership that has taken this team by storm, that has allowed this team to play with confidence, that is then added to his level of play because he plays with confidence. When you look at this team, even yesterday, when we saw them play, or 2 days ago, when we saw them play, you didn't have the threat of, oh shoot, Jalen Hurts is going to take off. That is a huge threat. That's just like Patrick Mahomes no longer being able to escape the pocket. You lose an element of the game that's critically important. That was not a concern when you're looking at Gardner Minshew. A team, they got 87
They're not
yards
as good with Gardner Minshew. I'm not arguing that. But my argument is they still had over 400 yards of offense, scored 27 offensive points, 34 overall. It did not look to me like they were missing the league MVP.
Greg, if you had a vote, who are you voting for?
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
who are you voting for?
I'm going to be.
Who are you voting for? Yeah.
Justin Jefferson. I've changed my vote.
I knew it.
Well, you know what?
I knew it.
Yeah. Well, it's not just a quarterback.
That's kind of like
I
a
knew
Kurt
it.
share.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go. There's someone on
my
the
dark
Vikings.
horse?
Hey, coming up next, we remember your Kirk Cousins MVP picks. I know we
Dark
tried
horse.
to bury it. Is Greg hopping back on the Packers bandwagon? We discuss next. First things first.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.